A violent weekend in New York City after Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul's victory. Well, the madness continues. One person dead, 3 others injured in 2 separate shootings in an upscale Chelsea neighborhood. Just days earlier, a man allegedly raped and robbed a woman who was jogging in that same area. Also in Chelsea. Again, this is a high-end area. Police say they busted a man with 20,000 rainbow fentanyl pills. Prosecutors asked for bail, but a judge let that man back onto the streets without bail. Crime, of course, is a huge issue in the New York governor's race. At least it was. We know. Republican Mike Lawler with a high-profile victory unseating the DCCC chair, Sean Patrick Maloney, in New York.
Governor Hochul should look at the results and recognize that voters are not only dissatisfied, but they want change. And she has a responsibility. And I've said many times, if the state of New York refuses to act, then the federal government needs to intervene. This is outrageous. Government's primary responsibility is to ensure the public safety.
A new op-ed argues, quote, in voting for governor, New Yorkers were clear they want a safer city, but they're not panicked enough to vote for a Republican. That's fair, but Democrats and their enablers are responding with gibberish. All this is a quote. Newly reelected Democrats should focus on cutting crime. Instead, they're settling on a different solution. The problem isn't crime, but that the public knows too much about crime. I mean, that's slightly ignorant. Jason Rantz, Seattle KTTH radio host. Really? The public knows too much, and so they don't know how to vote because they're overeducated on crime?
Or we just don't understand the actual data. I mean, that's the other thing. We've been told how many times that we're just wrong, that there's not a crime surge. Every once in a while, you'll get that lame talking point. It's actually red states that are responsible when, in fact, it's the blue cities that are driving all of this. I think, unfortunately, what we're going to end up having is not just from Governor Hochul, but from the Democrat Party. I think they're just going to ignore the results of these elections, these races. And I think what they're going to end up doing is excuse why they lost in New York, why they lost somewhere else. They're going to point to no red wave, and they're going to take that as a significant push towards even more of their deadly policies.
This is why it's so important that we continue to show the news. Because you can't overeducate anybody. So I don't know how they ignore this. Chicago man. In Chicago, police released terrifying surveillance video of an armed man following a woman into a building and attacking her before stealing her car. Violent weekend in the Windy City, where at least 5 people were killed, 20 wounded in shootings across the city. And it's been going on and on and on like this. People had a chance to change it. So, Jason, the question becomes, why didn't they?
I don't know. That's the honest answer. We talk about this every single week. People obviously understand what's going on in their own communities. I think depending on where it is we're talking about, for example, maybe in Chicago, New York, Seattle, there are so many people who are blinded by their own ideology that they're unwilling to acknowledge that the policies that they promote are the reasons why we're seeing what we're seeing. And so they convince themselves that it's not actually happening. But on top of that, as much as you and I talk about this and Fox News talks about this, you go to the local media, they're not talking about this, not in the way that we are. They're not connecting dots to policy. They're just covering this as just some sort of transactional story. And when you look at some of the other national outlets, they're not talking about this at all. And so I do think that there is, to your point, there's nothing wrong with giving people more information. I don't think a lot of people are still getting access to this more information that you and I are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and as you're talking, several sirens go by where we're sitting here just off of Times Square. Look, it's a reality. It's not a perception. So people will have to make choices going forward.